Hi, I'm Jamie Borden with Stick Library. I'm here interviewing Neil Peart for the new revolutionary iDrum magazine, the first electronic magazine specifically for drummers. Good morning, Neil.
Hi. Hi.
Neil, I've read in a couple of different articles about your motorcycle adventures, and most recently have heard of an award that you received from the AMA, American Motorcycle Association. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, it was basically a lifetime membership with a beautiful little trophy that comes with it. And actually, a great story about that because a friend of mine, Jewish grandmother, once said, "What do you get when you get old? You get a trophy." Atrophy. But it was that kind of thing that has to be earned in life. And I remember Nick Mason from Pink Floyd was elected a member of the British Racing Drivers Club. He's saying more than all the gold records and all awards and all that, this meant something because he had been accepted among the peers of a field outside his chosen one. So to me, to be kind of an ambassador of motorcycling, I think was what they intended, having written books about motorcycle travel. And articles and interviews and stories that I've written about the craft of riding a motorcycle strategically and with concern for all other road holders and all that. So it was just a nice, an unexpected honor from a field totally outside my own, of an achievement, I think you would say, of not being just rewarded for selling records like a gold record or something, but for being honored for a contribution to a field outside of your own.
Right, and this is so closely knitted with your touring life. This summer you mentioned that you've logged 23,000 miles?
Yeah, 23,000 miles on this first part of the Time Machine tour. And just come back most recently a couple of weeks ago from South America, where I toured by motorcycle down there, which combined adventure travel and business travel in a way that I found particularly anxious, because I've done plenty of adventure traveling before in Africa, in Europe, in Mexico, in China. And when you're traveling like that, if something goes wrong, or if your plans have to change for some reason, or if you have problems at a border crossing, you just deal with it, and then move on. Well, when I had a show to get to, and tens of thousands of people in some cases, there was no option for that, or a mechanical breakdown, or any delay of any kind.
Right.
So I just found that suddenly I was so anxious all the time because I had to get somewhere. But at the same time, to have traveled 3,000 miles through South America, from Brazil down through Argentina and then across the Andes to Santiago, Chile, is a lifetime experience, you know.
Absolutely.
So in a way, at the time I was saying, I'm not sure this was a good idea. This wasn't a good idea. This is a very bad idea. And it was just that much worry, you know. We had 4 days to get from Brazil to Argentina, and that whole 4 days I was just like, and measuring it all. And then the last ride was, we had to do, I guess it was close to 1,000 miles with 1 day off to get from Buenos Aires to border crossing and into Chile. So the nervousness of that, and every show that we got to was like, okay, we got to this one, we got to and there's one more, you know. So the experience was unbelievable, and the whole idea of arriving at the shows. And on the last day, I was so tired because I was getting up in the dark, getting it on the road by sunrise, and riding all day long. We were 600, 500 miles a day. We had to cover because we had that much distance to cover. So on the last day, I walked into sound check and talking to Geddy and Alex about, oh God, I made it, you know, we did it. And I said, well, I've never been so tired in my life. And Geddy turned to me and said, well, we can do a shorter sound check if you want. And I pointed at my drums and said, that's nothing. The drumming is easy.
Yeah.
And I've often, even touring in America, you know, I'll be on stage in Salt Lake City or somewhere that I've had an adventurous day getting to. I'll be on stage playing finally, and I just wish the audience could see a movie of me getting to work today, you know, because that is, I spend, you know, 3 hours a night on stage maybe, but I spend 7 hours a day on the bike.
Right.
You know, in a whole different, of course, much less controlled environment, and where I'm just part of something. You know, I'm not the center stage attraction at the carnival. I'm just one of the army of people fighting the battle, you know, to get places out
Certainly.
there. So,
Could you see the relief on Geddy and Alex's face when they'd see you coming into sound check after a
yeah,
ride
well,
through
I've been doing
Argentina?
this for 14 years, and I've never been late for a sound check even, let alone a show. And it's always planned so well to have so much time in hand. And if there's a long way to go, then, you know, I start early and ride long and make sure I'm there. And I've never missed one, so they have reason to trust me, I think, at this point. But of course, doing it in South America takes it up to a whole different level from doing it around the United States or Western Europe, where rescue is easy. In that 4 days between Brazil and Argentina, we never met anyone who spoke English. Just one example.
Right.
And there, you know, there aren't, like in America or Western Europe, I have a bus and a trailer. and in America, a spare bike, you know, so I can always make it happen if necessary. But down there, we were totally on our own, just my writing partner, Brutus, and myself. So that's part of the anxiety. And we were we were so lost in Brazil.
Yeah.
For a couple of days there, we were just so lost. And I call it the primitive GPS, where the next village we were trying to get to was called Gaucha Vista. And you go, Gaucha Vista? Gaucha Vista? Okay, no, that way. That was how we had to navigate, you know? So being that basic and that remote in those kind of places really went all of those days without meeting anyone who spoke English even.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's a whole other thing. But in terms of the band and management, of course, they're anxious about it, especially when I announced that I was going to do it in South America. But at the same time, I built up a good track record in 14 years of, you know, they know that they don't worry about it, I think, normally.
Yeah, the combination of no speaking English and automatic weapons is kind of unnerving too, I'm sure.
No, honestly, the people like Brazil was so friendly and so relaxed and so developed. And, you know, when we did get lost, the road network was great, the drivers were great, the people were so friendly. We were stuck in this little town way on the Argentinian border, 13,000 people, this town, but it had a nice little hotel in it, a nice little restaurant on the street playing great music, I want to add, by the way. That's the other thing of traveling like that. Just sitting in this restaurant and hearing this amazing music that was a hybrid of Brazilian and West African music, like the Senegalese artist Youssou N'Dour. I love his music and the percussion aspect of it, so great, and Brazilian music always. And in fact, the previous tour in Brazil, my wife and I went to Bahia, near the town of Salvador, which is the heart of the African-Brazilian thing. It was one area where the sad history is, that's where the plantations were, and that's where the slaves were. But in the post-slavery culture, of course, it was the greatest hybrid of South American and African music, art, culture, all of that. So we're right in the heart of that, and the drummers who played on Paul Simon's Rhythm of the Saints, Olodum, well, this is where they're from. This is their schools for these drummers in this town. So it happened to be a Saturday. My wife and I went into the town. All you hear is drums coming from the upstairs rooms, people walking down the street with drums. It's like, what heaven have I landed in here? And we're hearing it all around us there, you know. And there's a kind of dancing there that goes axe, A-X-E, dancing. And it's a narrative style of dance, like the Hawaiian traditional Polynesian style of what hula dancing really was, and African too. And the dancing troupes that I've seen traveling in West Africa, again by bicycle, so I was getting off the beaten track into the little villages where these things survive. And it's too easy to sidetrack out of Brazil to West Africa for musical. But this was one example of sitting in this little restaurant in Itaporanga, Brazil, and hearing this excellent music, and a hybrid I've never heard before, West African and Brazilian, both beautiful, both very rhythmic, of course, very soulful rhythmic music. And I would call the waiter over and I had my notepad out and said, musica, and got him to write down, you know, the names of the artists that I was hearing, because when, for anyone who loves music, to be in a place like that, hearing something spectacularly great that you've never heard before, of course, that's very exciting.
And as you find that inspiring you and you're out, because one of the questions I did want to ask you is these rhythmic ideas and grooves and possibly melodies and lyric ideas, it's easy enough to jot down a lyric, but when you're moved and inspired by an actual rhythm, it's easy to forget that if you have distance under your wheels and you're thinking about different things. How do you, other than writing down the name of the artist, how do you go about keeping those rhythms in your mind so that you can apply them to your next? Yeah,
it's a good point. And most of my rhythmic growth is evolutionary, so that what I've worked on grows into something else, grows into something else. But there have been the odd time that I would call epiphanies like that. And there's a rhythm that I used a lot in the late 80s or so, Nigerian music, West African music, with slightly displaced accents in it. And I heard that, I was in a village in Togo in West Africa.
On your 10-speed?
Traveling by bicycle that time. And just, I heard this rhythm echoing across the valley. And it was just two drummers with hand drums playing it, and it engraved itself on my mind and became a huge influence on me rhythmically after that, because I'd been listening to King Sunny Ade, was a pioneer of Nigerian pop music, and a certain rhythmic accent syncopations that it was based on, that I was very influenced by at the time. And then this other rhythm that I heard that time in Togo was from that same heart. And the music that I heard, it lodges itself in my brain. It engraves itself in there. And And then that becomes something special. And those are rare, I think, when you're suddenly hit by something that's that strong. Reggae, the first time reggae music really got into my soul, and I felt that upbeat, downbeat tension. Again, I'll never forget. It was Bob Marley's song, Natural Mystic.
Yeah.
Just sitting in a car and hearing that song. And suddenly, I got